Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Policing TV, where I am delighted here to be joined by retired Inspector Lance Valcour, OOM. Lance has had a distinguished policing career, starting early on with the Ottawa Police Service, then with the Canadian Police Research Centre, and also working very substantially with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, being, amongst other things, a past chair of the Board of Officers on the Law Enforcement Information Management section. So welcome, Lance, and thank you for joining us here on Policing TV.
Thanks very much.
We're going to divide our conversation into three parts. First of all, focusing on your policing career. Then in conversation about a book that you are, as we record, imminently to publish. And I'll give the title of the book here. If Only They Knew: A Cop's Journey with Addiction and Mental Health. So a clue there as to how this conversation will develop in part two. And then in part three, we'll look at some wider policing challenges from your perspective in Canada, which I strongly suspect will resonate with those in policing, no matter where they may be in the world. So thank you again. Let's start with asking you the question, what led you to join Ottawa Police Service in the first place?
Well, I grew up in a very small village, actually on the Canada-U.S. border. We could see United States from the St. Lawrence River. We could see United States on the other side. And in that small village, 1,100 people, I was a carry-out boy at the grocery store, I was a lifeguard at the beach, and I was a referee for our hockey teams. And all those places, the Ontario Provincial Police would drop by and chat. And so very early on, I thought, well, that's pretty cool. They help people, and that's something I think would be a great job. And so originally I was going to join the Ontario Provincial Police. The rules back then were that you had to be 21 in order to join a police service. But the Ottawa Police Service, which was an hour away, their rule was 18. So I said, well, let's try to get into Ottawa. And if I get in there, then eventually I would switch over. It isn't what happened. Eventually I stayed with the Ottawa Police for 33 years.
So for 33 years, which suggests that you made a good career decision. Staying for that length of time. What do you remember of those formative early years as a police officer with the Ottawa Police Service?
Well, probably first and foremost was not really understanding anything about the world. Right, I grew up in this small village, really sheltered. Go to the big city, and I remember my first night walking the beat. The staff sergeant would be at the front of the parade and say, "Okay, well, Jones, you're on car 210 or whatever." And then Valcour, sir, 15 beat, second relief, meaning you had that beat and you had the second lunch hour. And I put my hand up, where's 15 beat? And the whole room goes, oh my God. So that was my introduction to, they actually assigned someone to show me where Rideau Street was. I didn't even know where Rideau Street was, which was literally 2 blocks from where we were sitting.
So a steep learning curve on joining and
Yes.
Progressing there to a point. We'll sort of fast forward quite a bit of this. I'm sure there's much more that we could explore there, but fast forward to you're getting involved in matters well beyond 15th precinct, 15th beat, whatever you call it, getting involved in the work of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. How did that then develop? You were looking very much at Ottawa policing, but then you got involved in the International Association.
Well, there's multiple steps. One was when we walked the beat, we had to walk in the winter as well. And it gets very, very cold in Ottawa. And one night on midnight shift, it was exceedingly cold. And the inspector from the communications center came in and said, we need someone to come work in comm center for a year. And I thought, well, that's got to be better than going out and freezing every night. That led to me being involved and leading for the comm center because I was the most junior person in the room. our involvement in rolling out computer-aided dispatch and records entry and mobile digital terminals. So my first technology project was in 1979, where we were the first police service in Canada to roll this kind of technology out. Fast forward many years, because of that kind of, some people thought I had a propeller on my head, that I understood the technology, but I also understood operations. Our then deputy chief asked if I would like to join the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, what used to be called the Informatics Committee, now called the Information and Communications Technology Committee. So I joined that, and through that, you start the lens. If you think of Covey and climbing to the top of the tallest tree and look out of the forest, that gave me a national perspective. And then from that, I started to go to the International Chiefs of Police and attend what was then called the LEIM, or Law Enforcement Information Management Section meetings. It's now called LEIT. And we would hold a technology conference every year. Eventually, I was elected to the board, and you kind of work your way up from fifth to the top. And for 1 year, I was the chair of the LEIM section of IACP.
So I'm intrigued here, not least because there will be some, maybe many watching this, who are considering a career in policing or embarking on their early career. From what you say, it doesn't sound as if you had this grand master plan. That you took the first step of joining the police, and then I'm sure to some extent developed the direction you wanted to go. But also you had some good fortune in some of the opportunities that were afforded to you. Is that a fair summary?
It is, but there's also a philosophy. It wasn't one that I kind of consciously created, but it came through osmosis, through the people that I connected with. There was a philosophy of always looking forward. So you and your listeners, your watchers will know lots of police officers, lots of people who basically walk through life backwards, kind of complaining, well, why didn't I get that job? Why didn't I get that opportunity? I always tried to kind of look out over the horizon and say, well, what's out there that might be of interest? And then what can I do to kind of get myself to go there? And that, for example, when I got that tasking of being involved in the computer-aided dispatch and records entry very early in my career, quite frankly, at the beginning, I thought I was kind of getting there was extra work, right? It wasn't like, oh my goodness, this is going to lead into, no, but in hindsight, it opened up a door. But lots of doors get open for lots of people, but you have to be willing to walk through it. And I think there's also a piece. I've never been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, but as you can already tell in this conversation, my mind kind of does that. So that was an opportunity. Those have been opportunities for me to kind of do different things. And my policing career had roughly 20 different assignments in 33 years. And every one of those was an opportunity to learn something entirely new.
So what of that time with the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police and the IACP, do you particularly remember as we'll come to the challenging times in a moment. So the times that you particularly enjoyed, what comes to mind from those times?
Well, it's when someone on one of those groups or somewhere in the world, there was an idea, an opportunity for us to do better. And a lot of that started, I guess, probably in the 80s and 90s, where we went from this kind of everybody has to buy their own individual products that only work within themselves. They don't work, they're proprietary. They don't share information. And this whole concept of being interoperable. And of course, 9/11 happened, right? And by then I was what's called a duty inspector, an incident commander. And so, we're ramping up for everything that was potentially going to happen in the nation's capital. And flowing from that, our good friends in the States through NIPSTIC and other groups started, well, how do we do this? And it all became it's actually quite simple. Let's all use the same standards. I'm talking to you today on a computer because of standards. I could talk to you on my phone because of standards. So that really was an opportunity, and we tried to drive those forward. In many cases, successfully. In some cases, not as much.
So there are some resonances with many other parts of the world there. I'm sure pretty universal that distinct systems, silos almost, pursued with or by individual, not just police forces, police agencies, but other agencies that they might be working with, other stakeholders. And that may be something that we pick up on in our third video. There is so much we could speak about here, Lance, but I do want now to lead into part two. So the clue again being in the title of the book that we're in the next video going to talk about, If Only They Knew, A Cop's Journey with Addiction and Mental Health. You refer in materials associated with the launch of the book, as we record coming up fairly shortly. You refer to the book as having strength, courage, love, a story about how a woman faced with immense challenges in her relationship found the inner strength and courage to stand up and say, no more, this ends today. Before we actually get into the book, just give us a lead into it from your policing career that then gives us an opportunity to break for part one and then come back for part two.
For sure. I think there isn't anyone that's going to watch this that has served as a police officer or paramedic, firefighter, first responder, military, that there wasn't a seminal moment in their careers, typically fairly early on, where something happened, they witnessed something. And I like to use the analogy of A Christmas Carol and Marlowe with the chains dragging, right? Those chains get added on over and over and over, and they get heavier and heavier and heavier, but we don't know it. We don't see it. And the first chain of that was kind of added to my mental health world and challenges came very early in my career, and I think we could talk about that in the next segment.
Lance, thank you so much for that view on your policing career and the short introduction to what we're now going to move on to in part two of this conversation. So, Lance Valcour, for the time being, thank you very much, and we'll be back in a moment with part two.